So how do we approach this question? For that matter, how do we approach any question center of mass? First, we select an origin and then place the masses with respect to the origin, and then find out the respective coordinates with respect to the origin, which gives us the coordinates of m1 as x1 y1, m2 as x2 y2, and m3 as x3 y3. And therefore we have x bar and y bar, right? Now the question here comes, which mass or which point will you choose as origin? You can either choose m1 to be the origin, or choose m2 to be the origin, or m3 to be the origin, or you can even choose some other point as the origin and then find out these values. Now, since the question has 4 options, all of them being with reference to 1 kilogram mass, above 1 kilogram mass, right? Since the reference is with respect to 1 kilogram mass, we will select an origin. We'll select the origin to be the 1 kilogram mass. Okay, but don't worry. What we'll do is, we'll do this in 3 parts. One, we will solve it with respect to 1 kilogram mass as the origin, 2.5 kilogram as the origin, and then 1.5 as the origin. And things will become really clear to you if you follow these 3 solutions. All right. Having said that, let's move on to the solution. So, what I have done here is select an origin. I've assumed 1 kilogram mass to be the origin. We have m2 2.5 and m3 1.5 kept along the x and y axis respectively. Okay. So, if we were to consider the Cartesian plane here, so we have the x-axis and the y-axis, and convert the given length into coordinates. So we have 4 centimeter converted to coordinate 0, 4, 1.5, 3, 0, right? And 1 kilogram is at the origin, so the position coordinates of m1 will be 0, 0. Okay. Or in other words, we can say that the coordinates of m1, which is x1 y1, is 0, 0. Coordinates of m2, which is x2 y2, is 0, 4. m3 x3 y3 is 3, 0. Okay. Now, if we have this information, what can we do therefore? So we have m1 x1, m2 x2, m3 x3. What is x bar? m1 x1 plus m2 x2 plus m3 x3 the whole upon m1 plus m2 plus m3, which is m1 is 1, so 1 into 0 plus 2.5 into 0 plus 1.5 into 3, which is 4.5 by 5 equal to 0.9. Now, similarly, what would be y bar? m1 y1 plus m2 y2 plus m3 y3. So m1 y1, 1 into 0, 0, 1.5 into 0, 0, 2.5 into 4 is 10, and therefore what we get is x bar is equal to 0.9 and y bar is equal to 2. So, see, what happens when you choose 1 kilogram as the origin, it results in 2 of these values being turned to 0. So m1 x1 and m2 x2 here is 0. Similarly here, m1 y1 and m3 y3 is 0. The only terms we have is m2 and y2. Here the only term we have is m3 and x3. So that simplifies the calculation. Okay, right. So we have the value of x bar and y bar. Right. Now, if the center of mass is x bar comma y bar, right? If the center of mass is x bar comma y bar, how do we plot it in the graph? X bar is 0.9 and y bar is 2, which means we move along from the origin. We move along So we move along 0.9 through the x-axis, right? And then we move 2 along the y-axis. Okay? Which means the center of mass is 0.9 towards the right of m1 and is 2 2 centimeters above the M1. Okay, so this is how we locate the points. So this much distance here is 2 and this is 0.9 and the reference location is M1. So 0.9 towards right and 2 towards the height. So the correct option becomes option D. Now, what would be case 2? See, this is where things should come. Well, of course, this is definitely an extension of the problem. We are not trying to, the solution is already done. So what we're trying is to make sure that what if a question in the future comes where M1 is not the origin, right? So when I say M1 is not the origin, what if M2 is the origin? Then this axis would shift towards what? Towards M2. And then what happens? And what happens is essentially that the coordinates of M2 would now be equal to 0, 0, and you'll have to find out the coordinates for M1 as x1, y1 and M3 as x3, y3. Okay, well, we will see that in detail. This is just to make sure that you just get a glance of it. So try doing it on your own, and if you don't get it, go back to the next, go forward to the next solution. So what will be case 3? Think of it. What was case 1? M1 as the origin. What was case 2? Exactly, M2 as the origin. So what would be case 3? Case 3 would be M3 as the origin. All right. So we'll do case 2 and case 3 in a separate section. So before you go to the next solution, please make sure you spend time enough to derive this answer on your own and then check it with the given options, whether you arrive at the same answer or not. Okay. All right. So moving on to the next question.